Hello, record lovers, vinyl lovers, music lovers. Um, I've got a special video here to do tonight, and it could be a rather long one. I've just been reading this. Let me move a bit closer. I've just been reading this, Needles and Plastic, the Flying Nun record story from. This is covering 1981 to 1988. Now, this is the initial period of Flying Nun. Now, Flying Nun, everybody knows that Flying Nun is the New Zealand label, underground pop, alternative, and also their most successful, um, I believe. Not maybe for sales wise, but certainly for music and reputation. But this is a fantastic book. It's written by a Canadian fella, Matthew Goody, who was a huge fan, and he's done some massive research, and it's a great read. And it's put them all in order of the releases up until that time. In 1988, Flying Nun moved up to Auckland, I believe, or no, before that, or around about the end at this period, and they stopped being a purely independent, self-distributed label because they had to tie themselves up with Festival Records, I believe it was, and Mushroom in Australia at the time, because pressing plants in New Zealand closed in 1987, the last one, and so they had nowhere to press their records locally, and so they did that. So anyway, that's part of the reason why he's picked this period. Now, since I've restarted collecting vinyl again, and this year last year was the 10th anniversary, I believe. Well, actually, it was 2014 I started, so it's been over 10 years now. And I've amassed a pretty good collection of Flying Nun music. Now, not all of it is original. Quite a lot of it is reissues because I can't afford the originals, and some of them, and they don't come up as much. Although they're around, they're certainly around. And I've actually seen some in the shop the other day, but some of them are gone by the time I got back there. But also they have pretty big price tags on a lot of them. But so I had a small collection of Flying Nun stuff back in the 80s when it was coming out, and I cottoned onto a little bit of it, but not a lot. My frustration with the New Zealand music scene at the time was that all these bands were just putting out like these EPs and stuff, and very few of them were getting on to putting out LPs, and they would just break up. And I was really enjoying their music, and I didn't get to see a lot of them play. Unfortunately, I'd be a bit too young at the time, and especially these earlier bands, they'd all gone by the time I was old enough to go into pubs and stuff like that. So I missed out a lot of that. But anyway, look, we should get on because there's a lot to get through. So I don't have many of the 7 inches in this collection, and there is quite a lot of 7 inches in this first 9 years. I've got one to show you because it was such a great one, but generally I don't bother collecting 7 inches. And the funny thing is that some of the 7 inches in the Flying Nun 7 inches that go for the really big money, and a copy of the Pin Group's second single, I think it was, went for $4,000 on Trade Me a few years back. Anyway, so yeah, that was pretty amazing. But anyway, let's roll into it. So the Clean are the most important band in the Flying Nun history, really, because they're the ones that really gave the impetus to Roger Shepherd to kickstart him to getting in and releasing some bands. He wanted to release some music. He'd been seeing all these great bands, and and no one was releasing their music. There was very little in the way of independent labels releasing this stuff, and so he decided to take it on himself and do it. And well, the rest is history, of course. So the Clean, they put out a single first up, but then they put out an EP. Now I don't have an original of this, although I used to. But this has just been reissued. Who was it reissued by? Merge Records. Now, they did a couple of reissues of this, and I've got both of them. And one of them was on this really cool white marble vinyl. And then they did they did two versions of the reissue. Yeah, so this is the limited edition black and white swirl. And the other one is, this is going to be a really long video, I'm afraid, but I've got a lot of records to show. The other one is this one, and this is a New Zealand only exclusive release of this EP on Merge Records. And this is on this, it's supposed to be yellow, but it's almost more orangey, with the original label that came with the original. Now, as I said to you, this was the Clean's first EP. This is what put Flying Nun on the map. This EP was hugely successful in New Zealand, and it charted. Now, hugely successful doesn't mean to say that it sold 100,000 copies, because it just doesn't happen in New Zealand. It's just way too small. So I think it sold 3,000 copies maybe, or something up around. It was in the low thousands, but that was hugely successful. So I haven't managed to come across an original with this, but if I did, I would be paying 3 figures for it. So I'm quite happy to have those. Now, not mentioned next in the book, is it? Let's just go through the book's order. Oh, yes, it is. So the next one up is mentioned in the book. Now, these are in, I think, as close as he could get to the order of releases, and that, because the Flying Nun catalogue numbers did not add up to a sequential thing. They were all kind of just self-generated for each unit, sometimes by the people themselves. But this is an important one. Now, it's not actually on Flying Nun records officially, but they distributed it. Now, in the build up to things, I was under the impression that this came out actually before the first couple of singles. Excuse me. This is the Gordons' first LP from 1981. The Gordons were a Christchurch 3-piece, huge band in New Zealand. This is a fantastic album. This would be on many people's favourite list. This is an original copy that I picked up. Now, I used to have an original copy or thereabouts back in the day, but of course I sold my original collection. But I managed to score this for a reasonable price off another New Zealand collector. So the Gordons got together in 1980. As a matter of fact, the guy was asked, Alistair Parker, I believe, was asked to play a gig, support someone, but he didn't have a band. So he quickly got the band together, and they rehearsed and blah blah and did some songs, and away they went. And wow, yeah, they are absolutely mind blowing. This is really heavy New Zealand record. It's really raw, really good. So yeah, that was actually reissued recently. I've got the reissue. This was reissued on. Why don't they put their record label names on them? 72 Records. Is that what it says? Yeah, okay. I don't know. Just on black vinyl. So this was reissued. The reason I actually picked the reissue up was because it was reissued with their original 7-inch single. Now this was out before the album I just showed you. This is the Future Shock EP. Wow, this is fantastic. Yeah, it must be 72 Records, it says on there. Yeah, 1980 this came out. Yeah, 1972 Records. So anyway, yeah, wow, this is awesome, because yeah, you really pay big money for original copies of that. So really fantastic to have that that single. I mean, I did have it on CD, to be honest, because this album got reissued by Flying Nun on CD some years ago, and they included the 7-inch tracks off it. Right, moving along. This is one that I definitely knew I had in my collection back in the day. The Clean, their second EP, and of course they split up after this. Well, they put out one more single and then they split up. And that's one of the things that pissed me off, because I was really into them, and I absolutely love this. This is the Great Sounds Great, Good Sounds Good, So Sounds So, Bad Sounds Bad, Rotten Sounds Rotten EP. And the reason I bought this was because on Radio Pictures one Sunday night they showed the track Beatnik, which is the opener to side 2, which they had a video for, which is such a cool wee track. And so that was what got me onto the Clean. I was still at high school at that stage. It was 1982, so I was probably in the 5th form. Yeah, right, quickly moving on. So the next one, according to the book, and this is good because I actually have sorted all these out. So there were a few singles that came out, blah blah blah, which I don't have any of those. And then, oh yeah, we just the clean one I just showed. Ah, that one. Okay, I'll have to show that later. There's another one. All right, the Chills. Sorry, the Dunedin Double EP. Now this is an original copy. This was reissued not that long ago, but I managed to pick this up for a reasonably good price quite a few years ago. So 4 bands from Dunedin were recorded by Chris Knox on his TAC 4-track here in Christchurch, I believe. And they were the Chills, the Sneaky Feelings, the Stones, and the Verlaines. And they all contributed a side of about 4 tracks each, roughly to each side. It's an EP, double EP, so it's 45 RPM from memory. This is quite a famous EP in New Zealand. It sold pretty well. Put these guys on the chart on the radar of many people in New Zealand. Of all the bands, they all went on to record quite a lot. I mean, as a matter of fact, the Chills and the Verlaines are still going today, in a matter of speaking. Although Martin Phillips died a couple of years ago, so the Chills obviously are not going any longer. But they were right up until his death. And he's put out quite a few albums recently. And the Verlaines are still kind of semi-active, and they have put out albums in the last few years, along with some of the other Flying Nuns. But the Stones were the ones that probably didn't make it. They put out 1 EP. Okay, moving along. More singles, and then, so the Tall Dwarfs. So Chris Knox, who was in a band called Toy Love, back in the late 70s, and before that was in a band called The Enemy from Dunedin, who were one of the bands. They were like the Sex Pistols of Dunedin. There are a lot of bands. They played a gig at a Beneficiaries Hall gig, which is quite a famous gig in New Zealand. There's been a lot written about it, and there's photographs I've seen, and Roger Shepherd was there. There's a photograph of him there. There wasn't a lot of people there, to be honest, but that's not surprising in Dunedin because it's a small place. So Chris Knox was in that band, and that really influenced people like the Clean and some of the early bands, and Martin Phillips from the Chills, and that. He went along after the Toy Love. He went in, the Enemy morphed into Toy Love, and then they became, and then he went to Aussie, and then they came back, split up. This is his first EP on Flying Nun out of quite a lot of his EPs. Now, for me, the EPs are his best music. He's put out some LPs as well, one of which I have, a lot which I don't. But I have managed to track down all of the EPs that were out on Flying Nun. This was the first of about 5 of them. They're reasonably easy to find. I probably didn't sell in huge numbers, but they're actually reasonably easy. They aren't cheap. Chris was absolutely massive in helping Flying Nun get along. He recorded a lot of the early bands. He distributed the records. He found bands that to help record them. He had a huge impact on Flying Nun, as well as Hamish Kilgore, who is on the cover of the book, which he worked there. So Board Games. This is an EP that they released. This is not an original. This is a reissue from a few years back, 10 years ago, I suppose. Don't know who reissued it. It's only a 5-track EP or something. It's only 4 tracks. This is Shane Carter's first band. This is a great punky little one, and it's got some. Joe 90 is just brilliant, and it's really, really cool. And it was a reasonably successful little EP at the time, and probably pay quite a bit for originals. So really cool to have that. And then some chill singles and some other obscure singles. Clocking into 1983. So Fetal Mania by a band called Fetus Productions. A guy called Jed Town, who was in some of the early punk bands out of Auckland, put this out. This is probably our first industrial type record. This is an EP. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tracks on it. State to Be In is really the one that put this one on the thing, and it is such a cool song. Such a cool song. They actually did end up going overseas and not becoming what I'd say successful, but certainly reasonably more long lived for a wee while than some of the other bands. So yeah, that's a really cool little EP. Blah blah blah. More singles of 12 inches. Some Verlaines. Right, okay. this one here, originally it was only a cassette only release. So this is the Clean Oddities 1980 to 82. Now all of these songs were recorded by the band themselves almost before some of the, well, yeah, 1980. So before they signed to Flying Nun, before they just, well, signed, wouldn't say signed, before they, yeah. And originally they self-released it as a cassette, and then it was released again as a cassette by Flying Nun. And then many years later, like in, I don't know, 2012, I believe, it was actually put out on vinyl for the first time, and this is a copy of it that I've managed to pick up. It's pretty raw. It's pretty cool, though. There's some good stuff on there. Yes, definitely for the diehards. Definitely. But, yeah, so really pleased to have that. And then... have I missed one? Right, yeah. So I believe this is actually the first full LP that Flying Nun put out. So all of the runs that I've shown you, apart from the Gordons, which wasn't an actual Flying Nun release per se, directly, were EPs, you know, or 12-inch singles. Those are mostly EPs. I don't buy 12-inch singles. If I'm only going to get 2 songs for 12 inches, I don't know. Anyway, but Bill Dyrene, The Builders, this is his Beaten Hearts LP. There's some pretty big songs on here if you're in a local music scene. And Bill's still around. He's still playing. He was supposed to retire, but he hasn't. So 45 years on, he's still going for it. And he's made I've just shown a couple of his recent albums that he's put out. Yeah, so this was the first. This is a reissue. It's not an original. Oh, this was GY6. This was Grapefruit Records, maybe? People don't like putting their information on there, do you? I'm not going to sit here and read you because we'll be here all night. So I don't know when it was put out, reissued, but anyway. Right, and then we flick a couple of pages. Yes, and now we're up to after the Clean broke up, the Kilgore brothers got together and with them, just the two of them, but occasionally helped out with by some friends, and they called themselves the Great Unwashed, and they put this out in 1983. Clean Out of Our Minds. This was their first LP and only LP. This is quite hard to find as an original, but I picked this one up. This is actually Exiled Records reissue from, again, about 2012. I still had to pay quite a lot of money for this. I've only just picked this up recently, like within the last couple of months or so. I really, really want to get hold of the Great Unwashed singles. So they put out, after this, they put out a couple of 7-inch singles in one package. So there were 2 7-inch singles, and I think there were 6 tracks on it all up. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine had a copy of it back in the day. So yeah, really a really prized one to get hold of second hand if you can find one. But that also had been reissued on a 12-inch EP, which I did see in the shop recently for $150. Yeah, so I was tempted, but anyway, they were expendable. This was their only EP. This is Jay Clarkson from the Playthings, and a little bit on her later. She got together after the Playthings split and put together this band, 4-piece, and this little EP they put out in 1983. These are reasonably hard to come by, never been reissued, so this is an original of sorts. I haven't played that one a lot, actually. And then we go, right, so the next one, the Victor Dimish Band. This band was actually, didn't exist at the time, but they'd been a band that had, well, couple of the guys had played with Bill Dyrene in the Vacuum in the late 70s, and so they were around the scene, and they got together and formed this band, and they did some recordings, but nothing got released until a few years later. Now this is a reissue of the original EP plus some other tracks. There might be 2 EPs here. There's only one on the book that I recall. Anyway, so the EP is on here plus some other tracks, etc., etc. So yeah, originals of that EP are really hard to find because it did not sell very well. It was not, they were not a well-known band. But Stephen Kogel was in this band. He went on to the Terminals, and some of the guys that played in this band went on to do a lot of other stuff over the next quite a few years. Okay, so the Tall Dwarfs again. This is their canned music. So it's their second Flying Nun EP, I'm guessing. I mean, the Tall Dwarfs are just fantastic. Chris Knox and Alex Bathgate. They're just utterly fantastic, these EPs. All of them. I mean, they're not all totally brilliant, but they're all mostly brilliant and pretty damn good. The next EP was by a band called Children's Hours Flash, and that is fantastic EP, and I don't have a copy of it. I used to have a copy of it back in the day, and I absolutely loved it. They did one EP and one 7-inch, both on Flying Nun. I don't have either of them, and I did get offered a copy a few years back for $80, and I thought that was way too much, and I missed out, and I cast up, and I shouldn't have, because I've paid a lot more than that for a lot of these EPs that I am showing you now, like this one, Mary and the Atom. Their first EP, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 songs. I think this was an all-girl band. Oh no, it wasn't quite. But anyway, this is really kind of weird, atmospheric-y stuff. It's pretty cool. These EPs, again, never been reissued. Hard to find. Pretty much you're paying $100 each for them. They've got another one that I will get to later. And then there was a band called Ballon d'Essai. And the funny thing is I... See, this cover here is so familiar to me, and I've seen it around the place, and I thought I even had a copy of it. Now, they were a local Christchurch band, and they put out 2 EPs, and this is the second one, both of them on Flying Nun. Now, the first one was this one, which is called Growing Up. I don't know why I've crossed that out, but and then the second EP was this one here, Ballon d'Essai. I don't remember the name of that. That's later. Now, this is a reissue on Leather Jacket Records, which is a local Christchurch label, which has only been going a few years now, and they're chucking out a heap of reissues, and they jumped on this. And I thought that I knew this band well, and when I got this home and played it, I didn't recognise any of the music on it. So maybe it was just the fact that the cover kind of stand out a bit. So this is their 2 EPs, is that one and that one. But not all of the music off those 2 EPs are on this reissue for some reason, I believe, without going into Discogs and checking all that crap. But yeah, so this is actually a fairly recent reissue, so I haven't played it a lot. Oh yeah, the Skeptics. Now, just quickly, the Fall played, and the Fall were a huge influence on a lot of these Flying Nun bands, and they played here, and me too. I loved the Fall, absolutely adored them when I was back in the day. They played here in 1982, and I kind of knew they were playing here, but I didn't get to see them. Because I thought that I wouldn't be allowed to. I was too young, but they actually played the fucking town hall, and I didn't know that, and I would have tried to go if I hadn't been able to get any money. Anyway, the Fall played in Auckland, and they were recorded. Chris Knox recorded them, and he thought that he had permission to release that recording, and so they recorded an album. They released an album, double LP live album called "Fall in a Hole," and I had a copy of that album when it came out, but they got in a lot of trouble from Marquis Smiths about that, and were told to cease and not sell them and that. So, yeah, those are very valuable collector items now, if you can find one. And I would love to get a copy again. And there's that great Unwashed single that I was talking about earlier on. And there's a few bunches of EPs. There's a live album, various artist album, which I don't have a copy of, which I'd love to. The Chills single. The other Children's Hour record. Right, the next one is this one, and this is an original copy, Sneaky Feelings. Now, I showed you them before just on that Dunedin Double EP. Well, this is their first LP out on Flying Nun. Came out in 1983. I haven't played this a lot, but it's not too bad. It's better than I thought it was going to be. To be honest, they were one of the more commercial acts. Not that they were successful that much commercially, but yeah, that's cool. So that was their first LP. That's an original copy of that. And then the next album that came out on Flying Nun was This Kind of Punishment, which is a North Island band. The Jeffries brothers, they were in a band called Nocturnal Projections, and then they were kind of more punky, thrashy, rocky sort of thing. This is a bit more experimental. This is their album. This is a Superior Viaduct reissue from, doesn't tell me what year, but it's a fairly recent. I mean, they reissued all of their stuff, and I managed to pick it all up. I've got quite a few records from these guys. Graham Jeffries went on to do a lot of stuff with the Cake Kitchen and solo, and Peter Jeffries did a bit of stuff as well. Right, some more EPs that I don't have, some Verlaines that I don't have, some Bats that I don't have, EPs, Double Happies, I'll get to them later. Right, this one here, right now. Okay, so back to the Gordons. Now, I'll just hold that up there, snap. So, this isn't a Gordons t-shirt per se, it's actually a Flying Nun t-shirt I brought at their local display at the art gallery. Then they did their 40th anniversary show, the exhibition a few years ago. But this is the original Gordon's second LP. So the Gordons split in 1982, and then a couple of years later, two of them got back together with another fella, Vince Pink on bass. Now, the Gordons kind of disowned this album, and a lot of people, they say, oh, it's not that good, it's not that good. Now, this is the album that got me onto Gordons. So this came out in 1984, and I picked it up reasonably soon after. Again, I was still a bit too young to go see them play. They didn't stick around for very long after when this album came out. Never ever been reissued, but I absolutely love this album. Okay, yes, I agree it's not as good as the first LP, but it's fucking good. And anyway, I picked this up because this goes for well over $300 if you can even see a copy of it. But I managed to pick it up for half that for a guy on Facebook who's in one of the record groups I was in, and he, knew it was going to a home where it would be really appreciated, and that. So that was really cool, and I'm really, really pleased to have that again, because that's a one very difficult album to find. The next one is about the only 7-inch that I have. Now, I showed you they were expendable just before. This is a Jay Clarkson got after the Expendables kind of put that EP out and did some shows, blah blah, and then some of the guys moved on to other things. So she put together another band and shortened the name to the Expendables, and they put out this little 7-inch called The Flower with The Man of No Desire, and this for me would be the best 7-inch, and I actually picked this up for $20. It's not a big money up ticket. Oh, and I don't know why, because it is absolutely stunning. The recording is really, really good for a Flying Nun recording. Really is. I reckon it's stunning. It's very sparse. Drums, guitar, and bass, basically. But it's really not rocking music. It's really atmospheric music, and it's beautiful. And it just absolutely love it. But anyway, this is the only 7-inch from Flying Nun I got, because I absolutely adore the song. Although I think The Man with No Desire is on a compilation, I believe. So I can't remember which one it's on. Right, moving on. Some more EPs that I don't have. I was surprised that I've managed to find this one for a reasonable price. Phantom Fourth. This is their only record they ever put out, I believe. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 tracks. 7 tracks. Anyway, yeah. Just a 3-piece. I haven't played it for so long, I can't even tell you what's on it. I don't think it's one of the ones that really everybody loves about Flying Nun. It's just one of the ones that they put out. The next one, though, is an absolute stunner, and Chris will tell you it's one of his favourite records, New Zealand records of all time, and that's a fair call, because it is really good. So here we go again, the Tall Dwarfs. again, this is an original copy that I managed to pick up. The cover is actually just 2 bits of cardboard like that. So it's all very, Flying Nun. It's what they did, stuff like that. So it's got a little cartoony insert and stuff. Anyway, but yeah, so I do believe this EP has variants with different coloured backgrounds than the cover. Originally sold for $6.95. I paid a lot more for it than that, but not anything ridiculous. But it is the best of the EPs. Definitely is. It's a fantastic record, and if you're a Flying Nun collector, you really need to have a copy of that, and it's gonna be a real bastard. Oh, fuck! I'm gonna have to deal with that. No, I need to deal with it now, otherwise it's going to screw up my entire system, because I've got these all in nice order from the book, so that on the shelf they weren't, and I've kind of got them in release order, I believe, and well, certainly as per the book now. I got a lot of other Flying Nun records I collected. I mean, Flying Nun, they continued on releasing vinyl, and of course then CDs, there's a lot of CDs as well, but there's behind me there, that whole top shelf up there, where they see the half empty shelf, that shelf there, it's all Flying Nun from 1990 onwards, up to almost the most latest releases, so they are still releasing stuff now, as you know. Right, carry on. Let's see where we're at. I didn't have a drink. I should have brought it. Okay. Scorched Earth Policy, I'll get back to them. The Expendables, so as I showed you that single and that EP before, the Expendables put out this EP. Next, In Between Gears, there's actually a copy of this, there's actually 2 copies of this in Penny Lane at the moment for $100 each. Hopefully I didn't pay that. I think I got this from overseas actually. So yeah, this was their last EP, just down to a 3-piece at that stage. There they are on the back, and the front. Jay Clarkson's still around. She's still putting out music. She just put out a new album recently with a band. I haven't heard it, don't have it. Okay, more bats, more chills. Look Blue, Go Purple. I shall get back to them later. This Kind of Punishment again. The Exploding Budgies. Now, I'm lucky to come across this. These are really hard to find. The Exploding Budgies. The Grotesque Singers. It's a 5-track EP with David Mitchell, who went on to form. This was David Mitchell, wasn't it? Yeah. He's the man who does the grotesque artwork. Who went on to form the 3Ds. This is pretty cool. There's some really good stuff on this EP. This is the only thing they put out. He was David and one of the other members, or a couple of the